Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Artsbeat TV and Radio here from Westfield Community Programming Channel 15, 89.5 FM WSKB, and our media partners at Southwick Community Programming and Agawam Media. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach, and today we're going backstage at the Majestic Theater in West Springfield, which many of you know has been around for years. They've been presenting a variety of plays, musicals, comedies, some new plays, and I always think about them at the holiday period when they do their annual concert Home for the Holidays, which is just a great way to relax and chill before the holidays with some of the people that perform on a regular basis at the Majestic, as well as some of the people that perform in the community. And when they're not doing plays and musicals at the Majestic, you'll oftentimes see concerts by some of our area music makers. And Sue Dziura is here today to talk about the Majestic. And good morning, Sue.
Good morning, Mark.
It's nice to meet you. I see your name on every playbill, and usually your cohort in crime, Danny Eaton, shows up to kind of tell us about what's happening at the Majestic. So it's nice to have this opportunity for us to chat for the first time.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you too. Danny is wrapping up a trip to his family's farm in South Carolina. He's doing great. Asked me to be here in his stead.
I find it ironic that somebody who can manage and direct a theater also has a farm. And he's talked about it before. It's just so incongruous to me. I mean, I can't picture myself doing radio and TV and reviewing a show at night and then going out to, bring in the crops or, feed the animals and things. It's just, I don't get it. But I think it's sort of cool. You guys open with... You guys open with Mamma Mia, which has been a big hit, and you're just rolling through a season of plays and comedies and musicals. What's on tap for the rest of the season?
Well, Mamma Mia, we had to extend it for a week, so it's up this weekend and then next weekend. And then we went into rehearsal this week for our second show of the season. It's called Love Million Marie. It's a new comedy written by T. Emerson. It's lovely, and two incredible area actors, Frank Aronson and Julie Nelson, are doing some really wonderful work. So that's the next show. And then after that, you mentioned our Home for the Holidays, which is it's honestly, Mark, my favorite time of the year too. That happens in December, followed by a play by Karen Zacharias called Native Gardens, which is funny and poignant and thought-provoking and very funny. And that is in February, followed by Tennessee Williams' classic, The Glass Menagerie, which I can't believe has never been produced on the Majestic stage in the 25 seasons that we've been around, but it's finally getting its due. And then we're going to close the season the way we started the whole shebang 25 years ago with Buddy, the Buddy Holly story.
Which of these productions are you directing?
I'm not directing this season. At the Majestic, everyone who works on staff wears many, many hats. And this season, my hats are associate producing director and stage manager. So I'm stage managing Million Murray right now, and then I'll stage manage the Glass Menagerie later on in the season.
I think it's interesting that they're choosing to do the Glass Menagerie, and we just assume that everybody's seen it because it's a classic. This summer, I went to Barrington Stage to see Waiting for Godot. I majored in theater. I got my master's at Yale Drama School. I had never seen a live production of Waiting for Godot until this summer. So I think that there are a lot of people out there that have never seen The Glass Menagerie. It's a Tennessee Williams classic that you may have read or seen the film version of it, but it was written to be performed live on stage. So this is an opportunity to see something rare and unique.
Yes. Yes, agreed. It is one of my absolute favorites. It's one that when I was teaching um intro to theater at Wilbraham and Munson Academy, we would read and analyze and talk about, and it would be some students' first acting opportunities in that class. Yeah, I love it too. I'm
Now,
really looking forward to it.
I mean, I assume that Danny and your team choose the plays that and musicals that get to be done, and some of them have been done before, like Buddy. But you have there's always at least one
Mhm.
new play or two new plays or new titles, we should say, that get done. Do you get a chance before the season gets announced? Do you get a chance to read the scripts and offer input?
Well, yeah, it depends. It depends. So with Love Million Murray, this is a brand new play. Um, and we're absolutely the director Sheila Siragusa, who has directed All Over the Valley and has directed At the Majestic. I'm not sure which season it was, but the Alabama Story, which was really wonderful show. She has been working with the playwright for at least a year, helping fine tune the play, giving insight. And then now, even in the rehearsal room, um, she's working with the actors. And, if they have to make cuts or they want to make line changes, she works with the playwright. So it's very collaborative and a really wonderfully organic process.
Is the
Um,
playwright local?
The playwright is local. I think I can say this because I know it'll be in the program. The playwright's pen name is T. Emerson, but we know him as Todd Cadis, who is the treasurer at the Majestic Theater.
So, as a stage manager and director, what is it like to work on a new play when your playwright is sitting in the room? And I know that you guys produce some of the things that Danny Eaton has written, as
Mhm.
compared to taking a script like The Glass Menagerie that was written years ago, and you don't have a chance to talk to the playwright and say, "Hey, Miss Tennessee Williams, what were you thinking here?" Does the play like the one you're working on now? You read the script and you all decide to do it, and then it goes into rehearsal. How much will it change from that first rehearsal into Tech Week?
It it will not change a lot in terms of the premise, in terms of the characters. This is a two-character play, and they're very well drawn to begin with. So in terms of that, it's not changing much. The things that are changing are um, it is a comedy and there are bits, right? Sort of some choreographed bits throughout, and some of those will change depending on the way the blocking is happening, or they try something and they think that if they do it this way instead it's funnier, or it makes more sense to the action. So the changes are small, line changes, syntax and whatnot. But the play itself, it remains. Really, they're just breathing real life into it. But this is very different. So I have worked as a stage manager for Danny's last show that we did, the last play that Danny wrote, which was Betty and the Patch, which was originally in the winter slot last year, but because of COVID, we moved it into the summer. And I stage managed that and had the opportunity to work with him as his stage manager. But I've also been acted in a play that he wrote a number of years ago called The War and Walt Whipple. So I've worked with him on his plays, and this process is really different because Danny directs his plays, and Danny will change lines on the fly as we're rehearsing. Oh, that doesn't make sense. Cut it. Oh, why don't you say this instead? Danny is always willing to receive input from the actors, right? If they say, look, I don't really understand this. Can I change it to this? I think that makes sense. So it's very collaborative, and it's actually really cool, especially when you're an actor, to work with the playwright. In this instance, Todd, who wrote the play, T. Emerson, he is not in the rehearsal room. He really wants the production team to take this play and make it theirs, right? So she calls him the morning after we have a rehearsal, and she runs things by him and she asks what he thinks. But um, he's really taking, a more hands-off approach, and allowing the production team to do their work.
Yeah, I mean, that takes a lot of I don't know, that takes a lot of courage. I think if I wrote something and it was being directed by somebody else, I'd want to be in that rehearsal room every step of the way.
Yeah, I think I probably would too.
Yeah.
I agree.
What what was the point or the first play that you saw or musical when you said to yourself, "I've got to do theater"?
um well, I grew up watching all of the Rodgers and Hammerstein movies. Uh, they were my mother's favorite, they were my grandparents' favorite. So they were always, I think the first time I saw Oklahoma, I was probably like 4, right? And um so I always kind of loved it. But it wasn't, honestly, and I know exactly what it was. It wasn't until um I was in 7th grade, and my church, and this was in Central Mass, my church took a bus trip to Holy Name High School in Worcester, which was a Catholic high school, but they had a big spring musical, right, every year. And it was actually the major fundraiser for the school. Everyone in the school would sell ads for the program. Everyone in the school would be involved, and there were always over 100 kids in the show. And I was in 7th grade, and I went with my mom on the church bus trip to this Catholic high school to see South Pacific. Oh no, I'm sorry, to see Fiddler on the Roof. The next year was South Pacific. We saw Fiddler on the Roof, and I was like, wait a minute, all the people on stage, they're all like my age. What's happening? Right? I didn't really know that community theater or high school theater or anything was a thing until I was in 7th grade. And then the next year, when I was in 8th grade, we took the bus trip again. We saw South Pacific. Um, and I said, I have to, how do I do this? I have to do this. And it's a long story of my parents working a couple extra jobs to pay the tuition to make sure that I got to go to the school that was a half hour away. And but that's what it was.
And did you start as an actor and move into other things, or how did you get your start?
Yeah, I went my freshman year in high school. I went, and the spring musical was Lil Abner, and I was in the ensemble, and it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. And then I just did all of the shows that I could possibly do. I did all the musical every year. I sang in there was a really wonderful arts program in general at this school. I sang in chorus, and it was a class every day, all year long. So I had that moment, you know, every day in my high school, all throughout high school. The director at my high school started a community theater out of the school, I think when I was a sophomore in high school. So I did all of those shows. So I would be, in the show rehearsing after school, and then I would stay and I would rehearse whatever the community theater show was that night. And in the summers, it just, once I started doing it, I would see it everywhere and take it all in. So I just basically did all the theater I could. And then when I was in college, I started at UMass Amherst in the theater program. Any theater, college or university theater program worth its salt has everyone in the program try out everything. So even though I was an actor and wanted to be an actor, I had to work in the scene shop. I had to work in the costume shop. What's really interesting is, so Julie Nelson, who is currently in Millie and Murray, she was one of my professors at UMass. And the first show I worked on there, which was my first semester in college, I did her laundry. She was in a production of Our Town, and I was in charge of the laundry. And it's incredible that now we're working together in this capacity.
And she does her own laundry now.
Well, I mean, at home she does her own laundry, but then once the show starts, we have amazing people who take care of all of the costumes at the Majestic.
We got to take a quick break, but before we do, can you give us the website for the Majestic and where people can find out information if they want to see one of the shows this season?
Sure. It's www.majestictheater.com.
We're chatting with Sue Dziura from the Majestic Theater. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. This is Artsbeat. We'll return after these announcements, so don't go away.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Hi, it's Bob Plass, and I have Wow, It's Tuesday, every Tuesday, 6 to 8. Wow, it's Tuesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
I did it!
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. If you may be watching us on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15, listening to us on 89.5 FM WSKB, or enjoying us via our media partners at Southwick Community Programming or Agawam Media. And if you missed a part of today's program, or you want to watch it and listen to it again or share it with your friends, it's archived on WSKB Community Radio's YouTube page. We're spending this half hour backstage at the Majestic Theater in West Springfield. It's a community theater resource for 25 years. They produce plays, they produce musicals, comedies, dramas, some classic chestnuts like The Glass Menagerie, and some familiar favorites. They just finished Mamma Mia by ABBA. And one of the things that makes the Majestic really special is their annual holiday production. It's called Home for the Holidays. It's not a musical, it's not a play, it's not a concert, but some of the artists and musicians that perform on a regular basis at the Majestic come home for the holidays every year. I've been 3 or 4 times because I'm enamored by one particular actor at the Majestic who I've known for years, and love to go and see her and watch her perform. And the show doesn't really change all that much. A new song may end up here or there, and some of the people change and come that haven't been there. But it's like going to a holiday party where you get to see friends and relatives you haven't seen for a while. And I guess you direct that every year, Sue, right?
Well, I have directed it this year. Stephen Pettit, who's our production manager at the theater, will be directing it. He did it again last year.
Does it change much from year to year?
Yes and no. Yes, because the cast has a tendency to rotate, right? There are folks that do it every year. Ben Ashley, who famously was our very first buddy and was just in Mamma Mia, he is in it every year. But the other folks sometimes change. And because, as you said, it's like going to a holiday party with all your very best friends, which is exactly how I've always felt about it. It does feel different because everyone who is involved with it brings their own personality and brings their own, themselves to it. So it changes in that respect.
And I know I work on another radio network with Brad Shepard on Pioneer Valley Radio. We do an Artsbeat for him every week, and he loves doing that show and coming down year in and year out. And for him, he said once, it's like my holiday party.
Yes, that's exactly right. It's always been, for a number of years, I performed in the show, and it was just the best time of my year, the most fun. And it felt like I got to go to a party with my friends every night.
How long have you been at the Majestic?
I performed in my first show at the Majestic in 2004. So on and off for 18 years.
Has there been one moment or one memory of the shows that you've done at the Majestic that's that you consider to be a personal milestone?
Yeah, I played Diana in Next to Normal in 2014. I think it was 2014, and it is something that I'm very proud of, and it was definitely a milestone for me. It was a challenging role. It was big, and I felt like it was really important, and I was very proud to do it.
I did not see it at the Majestic, but I saw it at Theater Works in Hartford, and later had an opportunity to interview Christiane Knoll, who played the role of Diana in Hartford. She said it was the most challenging musical theater role she had ever done because the character is so complex, and that it emotionally drained her every performance, and she did it 8 times a week.
Yep. Yeah, that's how I felt. And when I was learning how to be an actor, I intentionally sought out a method called practical aesthetics, right? Which does not rely on using my own feelings to create emotion, right? It relies on adherence to the intention of the playwright, doing the best you can to make that happen, right? By focusing on an action and what it is you can get, and so on and so forth. But I've always worked really hard not to, emote and all of that. And so I thought, oh, that's a piece of cake, no big deal. But this show and that character and specifically is so fraught, right? She's mentally ill. She has a child that has died. There's so much to it that it was really challenging to keep myself above the anxiety that it sort of produced. It was emotionally draining, and hugely satisfying.
Do you still act, or do you mostly do directing and stage managing?
I mean, I do. I've been as the associate producing director, I am so busy with the rest of my duties that I don't know when the next time I'll actually get to be on stage will be. I hope it will be sooner rather than later, because it is my favorite part of the whole thing. But
if Danny Eaton is listening while he's plowing the back 40 down at his farm right now, what would be the dream role that you would always have loved to have done?
Oh man. I would love to do Mama Rose in Gypsy at some point.
I can understand that. Goodspeed Musicals just announced its upcoming season for next year, and they're doing Gypsy.
Oh, they
And
are?
I was just so excited. I've seen Gypsy a number of times with various, people in it. Most recently, I think with Patti LuPone. And no, actually with Leslie Uggams at Connecticut Repertory Theater. And I think Mama Rose is the ideal part. I would do it if somebody would cast me.
It's just delicious, and I would love to do it someday.
When you're not working in the theater, and you're working in the theater, it seems like 24/7. Where do you go for your entertainment? Do you go to other people's theaters, or do you completely leave the scene and do something else?
No, I do. I definitely go to other people's theaters. For a long time before I started working full time at the Majestic, I worked with a small company called Ghostlight Theater Company, which is in residence at Gateway City Arts in Holyoke. And because I'm at the Majestic full time, I really can't work with them anymore. But I love going to Gateway. It's a really wonderful place, and it had a difficult time getting through COVID, and it looked for a while like maybe they weren't going to come back, and then they did. And so I love to go up there, not just to see Ghostlight theater shows, but also there's concerts, there's a really wonderful restaurant in there. So I do that. I love going down to the Opera House Players in Enfield. One of my kids was in a show there a couple of years ago, and then last year was cast in their production of The Hunchback of Notre Dame, which they had to move because of COVID, but it'll happen again in the spring. What's really great about being in theater is that there's always a theater community, and so I have lots of friends who do theater all over the valley, and I try to get to as many of them as possible.
And I think we're very lucky that to have so much theater here in the Valley and in Hartford and the Berkshires. You could almost go to a different show every night of the week.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. We are very fortunate.
And how many scripts are on your night table?
Well, my bag that's sitting next to me, I probably have like 8. And then I don't have any on my night table because I'm trying to just read, kind of silly novel stuff before I go to bed. But I've got a stack on the desk.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I have a stack all over the house. There are little piles of scripts and plays about theater and cast recordings and everything else that I acquire more than I actually get through.
Yeah. Yes, me too.
Well, Sue, I want to thank you for joining us today. I hope that everybody that's listening or watching will get themselves down to the Majestic during the upcoming season. It's been the 25th anniversary of the Majestic Theater, which is a Danny Eaton project. And you can see a play, you can see a musical. The next big thing is Home for the Holidays, for the holiday season, and then The Glass Menagerie, and then Buddy, and there's others in between. So you can find out at their website, and they have a social media presence. And Sue, sure, thanks for being here with us today.
Thanks so much, Mark. I really appreciate it.
We'll see you at the Majestic, as they say. We're going to take a break to acknowledge the underwriters that make Artsbeat possible here on Westfield Community Programming, Channel 15, 89.5 FM WSKB, and our media partner, Southwick Community Programming and Agawam Media. And we'll come back with more Artsbeat. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Westfield Bank. For more than 160 years, Westfield Bank has been an important community presence and commercial leader in the Pioneer Valley. With convenient full banking services in Westfield, West Springfield, East Longmeadow, Agawam, Feeding Hills, Springfield, Southwick, as well as Enfield and Granby, Connecticut, visit us on the web at westfieldbank.org.
Support for community radio on WSKB provided by Westfield Electroplating, Employing over 140 skilled platers, painters, and technicians, Westfield Electroplating was founded in 1946 and was the first company in the country to achieve National Aerospace and Defense Contractor Program accreditation, proudly maintaining that status for over a decade. Westfield Electroplating provides over 50 quality finishes to meet your corrosion, cosmetic, or performance needs. On the web at www.westfieldplating.com or 413-568-3716. Westfield Electroplating, putting the finishing touches on technology.
This is Ken Stomsky from Ken's Den on WCPC 15 and 89.5 FM, Tuesdays 8 to 10.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. I'm Mark Auerbach, and with me for this half hour coming up is Rodney Rock from the Jorgensen Center for the Performing Arts at the University of Connecticut in stores. Rod shows up every once in a while to talk about the great things that Jorgensen is doing, and I have to say this, I can't not mention Jorgensen without mentioning the fact that when you go to a performance at Jorgensen, the UCONN dairy bar is around the corner, and that is enough to entice me to just about anything that you guys present.
Yeah, all of us. I think those of us working on campus seem to make our way over in that direction at least a couple of times a week.
Well, you're so lucky. We don't have that here. There is a little ice cream place around the corner from my office called Batch, and they're good. I'm not going to complain about Batch, but there's something about the dairy bar that makes every time I go to stores well worth it.
Oh, yeah. It seems to be a destination for people when they come through, pass through, or coming to an event or anything like that. So you're in good company.
Yeah, so we haven't chatted in a while, Rod, but when we did the last time, Jorgensen was just navigating its way out of the pandemic and trying to put together a season of live performance. And you're back in, as they say, back in the saddle with a full tilt of performances this year. How is the transition back to a full season gone?
Well, I think we're optimistic. We are not doing, as you know, in the last couple of years, we transitioned to a digital stage format. And that sort of allowed us to remain relevant to some degree during the shutdown. But we're back this fall now, no digital stage, everything's in live in-person performances. We're still operating with a reduced number of events. A full season for us would typically be, I would say, maybe 30 to 32. But we're going to have about 26 events this year, and we're making our way back. And I have to say, I'm very, very pleasantly surprised that our ticket sales have been good, and they continue to grow. We've earned almost as much money in the first half of the fall semester as we did the entire season last year. So we're moving in the right direction. We're getting audiences. We haven't sold out any events quite yet, but we're getting up to around 1,700 people at events. So we're moving in the right direction.
That's great. Now, I know that the pandemic, not only did you have to shut down, but a lot of the tours that have been planned years in advance, particularly some of the major dance companies, or for example, Mum and Shots, which you just had right before this airs, were planned a long time ago. How many of these events that you had to cancel were you able to resuscitate and move into the subsequent seasons?
Some of the tours just completely went away. But any event that I had to cancel due to COVID that I could has been rescheduled either into last season or this season. We have one dance company in the spring, and then I think I have kept my word and my promise to all of these artists and ensembles that were booked, and then we had to cancel because of COVID. So I'm doing pretty well. I think I've made good on every offer that I had confirmed. And so I'm feeling good about that.
And I know that this program airs in the middle of November. So can you give us an idea of some of the things coming into the holidays and then into the new year so people can plan a trip down to stores?
Well, sure. I would say just between now, our season launched on the 16th of September. We had the piano guys here. It was great. We've had several really wonderful performances through this past weekend. Tomorrow night, we have comedian Fortune Femster. And on Sunday, we have the Leonard Chamber Music. We present Apollon Musaghete with Garrick Olson. And then Mummenschanz, one of the events that was booked actually in March of 20. They were supposed to be here. They're coming back on the 20th of October. And it's kind of a continuation of their 50th anniversary season, which didn't really get to happen during their 50th year. And we have a family weekend show on the 20th with another comedian, magician, Justin Willman. In November, we welcome back Garth Fagan, which is another one of those companies that was booked prior to COVID. And we're making good on that offer in November. And then probably one of the events we have, Sophie Shao, who is on faculty in the Department of Music, will give a recital on November 15th. And then I'm so excited. On the 18th of November, we're going to present Samara Joy. Have you heard of Samara Joy?
I've heard the name, but I don't know what it is.
Oh my gosh. She is probably one of the most talented young jazz singers I think we're ever going to hear. She just turned 22 earlier this year. She just graduated from SUNY Purchase in 2021. At 2019, she won the Sarah Vaughan International Jazz Vocal Competition, which is kind of remarkable considering the fact that she did come from a musical family, but she didn't really start singing jazz until she was 18.
Wow.
She has the most remarkable basic instrument that you're going to hear. I truly believe, I don't often go out on a limb, but I think someday you're going to mention Samara Joy in the same breath with like Ella Fitzgerald and Sarah Vaughan and folks like that. Just an incredibly, not only this incredible voice, but she has such a grasp of the jazz style of singing, jazz styles of singing. I don't know this for sure. My impression is she must have perfect pitch because she's able to do some phenomenal things with her voice that I'm not sure how you could do if you were going to just depend on practicing every day to do it. I saw her earlier this summer, and she came out singing a couple of Thelonious Monk songs that she started with no accompaniment, and it was just phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal. And so I am so excited this will be her Connecticut premiere. And I think she's going to be huge. I think she's just going to be huge. She's got a new CD called Linger. Oh, what is it called? I don't remember. But it's Linger a While. That's right. And she's gonna be doing very, very well. And we're excited to be one of the first venues in Connecticut to have her.
Well, people should find out about this and all the other things that are going on at Jorgensen. They got a great website. I check it out every once in a while. It's jorgensen.uconn.edu. And I see things about Jorgensen on Facebook. So you should check it out. And for those of you that have never been to UConn stores, it's about 40 to 45 minutes away from Springfield. You can go on the highway if you want. You can go the back roads, and there's a lot to do in stores these days besides going to Jorgensen. There's like the UConn Dairy Bar, and there's some restaurants and all of that. And I happen to think that the UConn campus is beautiful. I mean, it's plenty of parking, very clean, nice, and all that. So if you're looking for this kind of thing, stores is really a great option. So, Rod, what do you have coming in December for the holidays?
For the holidays, we have On the 3rd of December, we will have the Boston Pops Esplanade Orchestra back with their annual holiday concert. This will be their 16th or 17th consecutive holiday concert here in Storrs. It's always a great way to kick off the holidays. And it's a lot of fun for the staff. We really kind of pull out all the stops with decorations in the hall. And it's just a great way to sort of kick off the holiday season here at Jorgensen. On the 6th of December, we will be presenting the Boston Camerata under the direction of Anna Zema, the French soprano Anna Zema. They're going to be doing, they're going to be singing their latest CD, which is Hodie Christus Natus Est. And the nice thing about it is the concert will feature UCONN's own Collegium Musicum. Students will be involved in this presentation, and they're under the direction of Dr. Eric Rice, who is the department head in the Department of Music. So that'll be a very nice concert that evening. And then on the 9th of December, we wrap up with the Messiah Sing, which is again with the UCONN Department of Music. But they've got great soloists, great choirs, and of course we invite the public to bring their own score because it's a sing-along. Everybody's invited to sing along to the choruses. So that's a great way to sort of wrap up the fall season.
Can you preview the spring season at this point?
Well, I'll tell you, we have not announced the spring season. It won't be announced until December 1st, but I can tell you a few things. One of the things we're really excited about in the spring is that we're going to be returning with family programming for kids. We haven't had anything now for almost 3 years for young families and children, and we're going to have 3 children's events in the spring, one in January, February, and March. And I don't mind telling you, one is Llama Llama Live in January. We have the Popovich Comedy Pet Theater in February. And then we end with Harold and the Purple Crayon in March. We have, very excited, we're going to be presenting the National Symphony Orchestra of the Ukraine on February 13th. And Solomia Ivakiv, who is the head of the strings department here at UCONN, very talented violinist and artist in her own right, will be the featured soloist for that performance.
Are they going to be doing music of Ukraine, or
they will not necessarily be? They're going to be performing one piece by a Ukrainian composer, and then the rest of the program is features romantic and classical literature. And the Leonard Chamber Series, we've got 2 fantastic chamber ensembles coming in March and April. We've got one of the dance company I was referring to earlier that's coming back in the spring is the Martha Graham Dance Company. The fall of 20, I think we had them booked sort of in conjunction with the anniversary of the women's suffrage movement in the US, and they had created a program just for that. That didn't work out because of COVID, but they're coming back with a really nice program in April, and we're excited to have those folks back. And then we've got we've got a high-profile comedian in February, and we've got several events that are more popular entertainment. I can't really tell you who those are right yet, but I think it's going to be exciting. And I think we also have some world music. We have Kodo drummers coming back in March. So it'll be a typical Jorgensen season, multidisciplinary and a broad appeal, I think, to many audiences.
And I would assume, just because of the way the business works, you're already starting to plan for 2023, 24, 24, and 25, and
absolutely
down the road. Like a dance company like Martha Graham, which is the forefront of the contemporary dance movement in this country. How long in advance did you have to get Martha Graham on your schedule?
Well, we typically, in general, I typically book 12 to 18 months out. And certainly when, it was kind of devastating for us, and we ended up having to cancel 10 events in the spring of 20. And I worked very hard to kind of stay in touch as much as possible with the agents who were representing those artists, just to reassure them that we wanted to try to make good on those offers. And but typically for me, I would say 12 to 18 months.
You may not be able to answer this question, but when all these events got canceled and everything. I would assume that because of the situation, you didn't have to pay off the contracts of these people you had booked. What happened to these companies? Did they just take a loss for all the lost performance dates that they would have had over the course of 6 months?
Well, the COVID pandemic was definitely a force majeure situation. That's written into contracts that in the event of a force majeure, Jorgensen is not able to, we're not liable for the contract, we're not able to present the performance, and the artists understand it and agree to it. But it also states very clearly that we will do everything in our power to find an alternate date for the performance in the future. So yes, it was devastating for dance companies and really any artist in entertainment that was out working that suddenly couldn't work at all. You know, it was difficult for Jorgensen, but you know, we're supported through the university and through the state of Connecticut. So it wasn't nearly as, it was difficult for us to do. It was unfortunate for us that we had to do that, but it wasn't as traumatic for us as it probably was for the artists, I'm sure.
Well, Rod, we got to take a quick break to acknowledge the underwriters that make Artsbeat possible. When we come back, we'll learn more about what's going on at Jorgensen Center for the Performing Arts in Storrs, Connecticut, jorgensen.uconn.edu. We're chatting with the director, Rodney Rock. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. We'll acknowledge our underwriters and be back with more Artsbeat, so don't go away.
Underwriting for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield, serving the youth of the Whip City and surrounding communities since 1969. For more information on the Great Futures Club for ages 3 to 5, happening weekdays, and the Club Teen Center for ages 11 and older, weekdays from 6:30 till 8 p.m., go online at bcgwestfield.org or visit the club at 28 West Silver Street. The Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield. Great futures start here.
Underwriting is brought to you by Boise Cascade Distribution, providing products and services needed for building material dealers, home improvement centers, and industrial customers. They offer everything from engineered wood and plywood to Drex decking and railing, James Hardie siding, and Advantech subfloor. Located at 33 Fowler Street Extension in Westfield and on the web at bc.com, they are committed to providing quality products, great service, convenience, and value.
Hi, this is Harry Rock, host of Rock on Westfield every fourth Wednesday at 8 a.m. Tune in for my view of this place I call home.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer this week and every week. If you've missed a part of today's program or you want to watch it again, share it with your friends. It's archived at WSKB Community Radio's YouTube page. And if you go back in the archives, as I did the other day, you can find the interview I did last year with Rodney Rock or the year before. Rod, I'm always glad to have you here on the program and to talk about Jorgensen. And I have to do a shout out and a thank you to your publicist, Renee Fournier, who I know is always sitting there when you're doing the interview, but she doesn't like to be on camera.
I invite her to take part every time. I don't hold a gun to her head, but it's helpful to have her in the room anyway.
Yeah, well, she does a great job, and if she's listening or within earshot, thank you, Renee. Rod, in organizing, is there a formula that you put together, because you have to present dance and music in certain genres and comedy, and I think you do everything but theater at Jorgensen. Is there a formula that you have as how many jazz concerts or how many classical, or do you have to see what's out there on the landscape?
I wouldn't say that there's a specific formula that I follow in every year. There is historically a type of programming has developed at Jorgensen. It's what people expect to see from Jorgensen. So from the standpoint that we still have a strong multidisciplinary presenting program, that's that's the most formulaic part of what I do, I would say. Yeah, it just depends. A lot of it depends on what's available in any given season. A lot of it depends on, some of it depends on the funding situation from the university that we receive, how, if that's reduced, or if we're able to, get a small increase. And then it also depends on how successful we were with fundraising in the previous year and in the current year. All of that goes into, basically, it boils down to, you've got a limited pool of money, and how do you bring in the best, most diverse season that you possibly can with that amount of money to work with.
Do the agents and the groups come to you and say, "Hey, Rodney, can you book us at Jorgensen?"
Oh, yeah.
Or do you go out? Or do you go out and shop for the things that you want?
No, typically, I am never at a loss for phone calls or emails from agencies and agents trying to get their artistic product in front of my eyes. And then there are, you probably know this, there are regional arts presenters conferences that take place across the country. And then there's a major national conference that takes place in January in New York City. Typically, I don't go to the regional conferences. I do travel around the Northeast a bit, seeing performances that are under consideration at various venues in Worcester or Providence, down to New York City, places like that. But the only conference I really attend is the one in January, and that seems to work just fine for us. And then the other thing is, I've been doing this for so long now that you get a good grasp of what's out there. It's always nice to hear about new artistic product, but you get a good grasp on what is out there, which agencies have the best artists, and which agencies have the best reputation for working with. And as I just described it to you, that works for me.
Do you partner with other arts centers? For example, Mummenschanz was at UMass Fine Arts Center and Jorgensen. Do you guys work together to bring these international companies here? Because by block booking, doesn't it make it economically more advantageous for you when you're partnering with other people?
Yes, it does. Yeah, and there isn't as much block booking going on as there was historically here in the Northeast. There's a great group of presenters called New England Presenters. The New England Presenters meet several times throughout the year, and there's a lot of conversation going on that results in block booking situations. And you're right. Yeah, it's a win-win situation for the artists, and it's a win-win situation for the presenting organization, because you're getting great product, probably at a reduced fee, and it makes it a little bit easier for the artists to kind of travel around one region of the country rather than trying to jet from one end of the country to the other.
And you've been able at Jorgensen to attract, names that you don't necessarily see performing on college and university performing arts series. You had Kristen Chenoweth there. I went to Jorgensen to see Renee Fleming in recital, and she was not making the rounds. So you must have some good ins with some of these agents and programs to get people of this caliber.
I think what we have at Jorgensen is a close proximity to New York. And I talk about this a lot with some of my colleagues in other parts of the country. You know, we're like 2.5, 3 hours outside of New York City. And I think because of that, it makes it a little bit easier for us to go after some like more major entertainers with larger, bigger names, more major presence. It probably would be a lot harder if I was in Whitewater, Wisconsin, trying to attract. Oftentimes, those are one-off situations, and that can become very expensive very quickly. And so I think you just have to be a little bit aware of what some of these major entertainers and artists are doing, and see how that might line up with your planning. Several years ago, we presented Maurizio Pollini, the very famous Italian pianist. It's arguably perhaps the greatest pianist, living pianist right now. And he was actually in New York City doing a recital at Carnegie Hall. And we were able to kind of line our programming up with that date in New York City. And so Polini was able to come up here like 2 nights before he gave his Carnegie Hall recital. And it works out great for him because it gives him an opportunity to run his recital formally a day or 2 before the recital in New York City. And we were able to get him and at a bit of a reduced fee because he's very expensive. But again, that's the kind of thing that leads to a win-win situation. It's a good thing for the artist, and it allows me to present artists to our audiences that maybe they might not be able to see unless they were going into the city.
You've been at Jorgensen for many years. What is the biggest production that you were able to put onto the Jorgensen stage in terms of sets, design, costumes, number of people, and how long did it take you to set that show up?
I've been here, as you said, a long time. I don't feel like anything that I've booked has been that enormous. The Boston Pops is obviously a big production because it's like almost 100 musicians on stage. And as I said, we decorate the hall and everything. But just in my memory, the things that I really think about when you ask a question like that, I can still remember when Jorgensen was presenting the New York City Opera when they were touring with their productions. I remember a Bohème that was done here that just had the most incredible set, and I couldn't imagine how they got that set up on the stage, but it worked, and it was a sumptuous and beautiful production, and I was so proud that Jorgensen was able to present something like that. We don't have that option anymore because the New York City Opera no longer exists. There really is very little touring opera these days. So as you said earlier, we don't really do a lot of theater at Jorgensen. We try to kind of defer to the Connecticut Repertory Theater downstairs in the Department of Dramatic Arts for those productions that they mount here at UCONN. And so I would imagine the Boston Pops is probably about the biggest event that we do annually. And we've done it for so many years that we kind of have it all down. We take 3 days beforehand to start getting the hall ready, and then everybody moves in like a couple of hours before the performance, and it seems to work. We handle it well.
Rodney Rock from Jorgensen Center for the Performing Arts. Thanks for being here this morning. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. We always appreciate your help promoting our events.
Okay, and if you want to learn more about what's happening at Jorgensen, you can go to their website, which is jorgensen.uconn.edu. Thanks to their director, Rodney Rock, and his publicist, who's behind the scenes today, Renee Fournier. And this wraps up another edition of Artsbeat TV and Radio. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. We're going to end today's program with a snippet from the musical The Light in the Piazza with Kelly O'Hara. We'll see you next week in another edition of Artsbeat.
Thank you.
I don't see a miracle shining from the sky. I'm no good at statues and stories. I try. That's not